Thank you, and welcome to Microsoft HoloLens and mixed reality. I'm going to take the next 45 minutes to give you an introduction into what mixed reality means, how it's shifting IT from our perspective, and how HoloLens plays into that. And give you some insights. I will give you also a live demo. I do have 2 HoloLenses with me. And I will also give you the opportunity to try it out yourself, because that's totally different from seeing. Is actually trying. So there will be multiple opportunities for you. The first one will be today at 3 p.m. I think it will be upstairs in the keynote hall. And then there will be another one tomorrow at 11 a.m. and another one at 3 p.m. tomorrow, if you want to try it out. Okay. So first of all, quick reminder, I guess you've already seen that. Please rate our sessions. Helps us to, oops, that one goes by automatic, that's funny. Helps us improve, and okay, this slide doesn't like me. Anyway, I'm Philipp. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Windows platform development. That means I'm caring a lot about community, doing a lot of talks on how Windows development goes. And together with my team, I've been building HoloLens apps since April this year. We've been one of the lucky ones that got a very early access to some of the devices. You can always reach me with my Twitter handle. So first of all, we have to sort something out. There's a lot of buzzwords flowing around regarding HoloLens and other devices. We have AR, VR, MR. So let's have a look at those first before we go to the holograms. So we have virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. And the HoloLens positions itself into the space of mixed reality. And what that means is, if you look at a typical devices, when you have a virtual reality device, you're being completely virtual. It means you're shut out of the real world. You can completely immerse into a virtual world with everything being virtual, but you cannot. It's kind of hard to communicate with other people, right? Because if I can't see you, it's hard to talk to you. And then on the other hand, we have augmented reality, where you have apps like Pokemon Go that kind of blend into the real world. So the device knows kind of your position and its own position and can position something into your viewport, but it's not very immersive. It's just on a small screen. And then you have mixed reality, with the HoloLens being the first of this kind of devices, where the device really tries to blend. So you can extend and mix into the real world, meaning the device itself knows about its surroundings. So it knows there's a desk over here, there's a chair over here. We can have objects collide with the real world, and we can therefore extend it. So for example, imagine you would have something that's real, like a half-built car, for example, that just has some wheels and an engine, and then you can try different versions of the outside style of the car on it, and have a real one-to-one scale image sitting on it. If we look into what this means on how do we decide which device to build for, it really depends on your use case. If you want to have a maximum level of immersion, if you want to have a really deep experience, you would probably want to go with virtual reality. Also because the virtual reality devices are way more mature than any mixed or augmented reality device that's out there. So if you want to have like a roller coaster ride or gaming, that's a pretty good case to go for virtual reality. If you look at the comfort of the devices, on the other hand, if you're wearing an HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift, you will have a big wire coming out of it. Why? Because there's a big PC that's powering the device. So you're not completely mobile. And it's a rather big thing that's on your head. It's not comfortable to wear that for 4 hours straight. Apart from that, you might get into motion sickness because you have a little disconnect between the image you're actually seeing and the movement of your head, because there's some latency around it. And also, as I mentioned, collaboration is a really hard thing to do in virtual reality, because as soon as I don't see anyone, but I hear them, from somewhere, it's not really comfortable to talk with them. Also, mobility is fairly limited because you always need some big machine that's powering the device. Even if you have like the new HTC Vive adapter that's going wireless, that's still a very short distance. You don't have complete freedom of movement. And if you augmented reality, of course, the immersion is fairly low. It's somewhere on the screen. Comfort is pretty decent, I would say. It's on a mobile device. You could do some collaboration, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because it's a small screen, but you have maximum mobility. And then on the side of mixed reality, you would actually really try to get both worlds together. We have a very decent amount of immersion. You will see when you try it out for the first time. There's a field of view that you have where everything happens, but it's pretty okay from its size. And as soon as you have been playing around for like 5 minutes, it starts to disappear. So you don't realize it anymore because you're always concentrating on the middle of your viewport. Comfort, well, it's not great, but it's okay. The HoloLens itself is not a super heavy device. It's not super light on the other side. There have been tests at Volvo cars where manufacturing workers have been carrying the device for 2 hours straight without any tiring effects. You can do great collaboration. Why? Because when you're doing mixed reality, you actually see through the device. So I can still see you when I'm wearing the HoloLens. I can see your reaction. I can see your face. And of course, mobility is quite good too, because as we will learn, HoloLens itself doesn't have any wires to it. It's not a companion device for anything. It's fully untethered. So now we got those things straight. Let's have a look at holograms. Holograms are at the center of HoloLens, of course. So what's a hologram? Hologram is an object like any other object in the real world with only one difference. It's not being made of physical matter. It's made entirely of light. So the important thing about that is, as a difference to a screen or any virtual object, is as soon as you have a hologram, it's static in your field of view. That means if you walk around it, it doesn't keep hovering in front of your face. It stays at that location. You can walk around it and view it from different angles. And that's a very important difference to virtual reality, where you're just moving your camera angle and rotation. As soon as you can walk around those things and you still have some real objects that go together with it, you get a very, very different quality of perspective and proportion of objects. So imagine you're building a kitchen, you're designing a kitchen in your real apartment, and you have an empty room. That's a whole lot different experience when you have those virtual objects sitting in your real room than in any virtual room where you cannot really judge on how big that is because everything is virtual. As soon as you have some real objects, that's getting pretty good. Holographic objects can, of course, view from different angles and distance, just like real physical objects. Also, important to remember when you're doing your first HoloLens demo, don't stay static. Immediately start to move around a little bit, because that's when holograms really come to life. It's not like a TV where you just keep watching on it. You have to get moving to alter your perspective. And then, of course, since holograms do not offer any physical resistance when touched or pushed, they don't have you cannot feel them. It's just light. That's the one big thing missing, I guess, with holograms to get to the holodeck we've seen in Star Trek. When we have a look at when holograms first emerged in popular culture, I guess that was the one. At least that's the first one I can remember. I've seen a hologram when they did this kind of video chat with Star Wars, and actually that's a real application now. There's a demo app in the HoloLens store where you can pair two HoloLenses together with a 3D camera and do exactly this kind of scenario. So you have a remote engineer or whoever that gets into your field of view as a hologram. When we think about use cases, we have a different example that's from the Iron Man who used holograms to virtual construct his suit. And that's actually a pretty good example because HoloLens is always strong when it's about 3D content, 3D construction, 3D design. When you really have an object, scale 1-to-1, and you can build it out. Okay, then let's look at the device itself. The HoloLens, some basic facts, it actually has 2 operating modes. I don't know if anyone heard of that. The HoloLens can operate in its classic mixed reality mode, but it can also operate in virtual reality mode, meaning it blends the screen so bright that you cannot see the real world anymore, and you're just virtual. So it's possible to do actually both kind of apps. Then at the core of the HoloLens experience, there's a technology called spatial mapping. Spatial mapping is a combination of multiple sensors that sit inside the device that keep actively scanning the environment at 5 frames per second and building a 3D model out of our real world. Right now it's just 5 frames per second, so it's really hard to do any motion detection when you're moving really fast. It's easy to blend with furniture. It's not so easy to blend with moving objects, but that's just I would say from my personal perspective, just a limitation that goes away over time. Also very important is it's fully untethered, meaning there are no wires whatsoever connected to the device, and there is no hidden wireless connection apart from that I will be streaming the image of the HoloLens so you can see what I'm seeing, but there's no undercover PC, and there's no setup whatsoever. So if I'm entering a new room, I just put it on, it starts scanning, and gets a more and more detailed picture of the room as I'm moving around. I don't need to set it up or calibrate it in any way. It just works. It runs Windows 10. That's what it's built on, which is, I guess, has its light and dark sides. I would say on the light side is that it has a very robust app platform. So it's not yet another operating system or environment we have to learn how to code on. It's just Windows 10, meaning it runs any Windows 10 app out of the box in 2D mode. So you don't have to have a specific HoloLens app. If you have a Windows 10 app or a website that runs great on Windows 10, it just works on HoloLens. It also means it's very easy for customers to integrate in enterprise scenarios. And that's what HoloLens is currently aimed for. It's not a consumer device. We are right now in the stage of doing prototyping and testing out in different enterprises. It's clearly positioned as an enterprise device, and therefore Windows 10 makes sense because you can integrate it into Active Directory, you can manage it through mobile device management. It's all because it's built on Windows 10. And then when it comes to interaction, you have 3 different input modes that you can combine in your own experience. The first one being gaze. Gaze means the HoloLens sees where I'm looking at. So you have a sort of a 3D pointer, a 3D mouse device that I can use to select any of you guys or any virtual object and then try to interact with it. And then you have gestures that you can use to interact with objects you're looking at. So for example, there's, or the most important gesture would be the air tap. You have one finger straight, somewhere in your field of view, just anywhere, and do a quick click like that. That's the air tap, and you will definitely need to have this gesture later when you try it out yourself. And the second gesture everyone needs would be a grab gesture. That's kind of the same like the air tap, it's just you hold it down, then you can grab things and move them around or scale them, rotate them. And the third gesture everyone needs to know would be the bloom gesture. The bloom gesture, since it's running Windows 10, you always have to have a Windows key. Everyone who uses Windows knows there's a Windows key, and if you hit the Windows key, wherever you are, you can open up the Windows menu. And it's the same with HoloLens, but instead of a Windows key, you have the bloom gesture. And the bloom gesture goes like that. So that's the bloom. If you do this gesture, wherever you are, you close the current app, or you minimize it, and if you do it a second time, you bring up the Windows 10 menu. It's called a holographic shell on the HoloLens, where you can select and start new apps. So, quick look at the hardware that's running in here. Remember, everything is inside this device. So it has a CPU, fairly mid-range actually, it's just an Intel Atom. 2 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of flash memory, it has wireless and Bluetooth. It's currently 579 grams. That sounds pretty light. Actually, you can feel it on your head. It's not that light anymore when it's on your head, but it's decent. As I told you, Volvo, they've been doing it for 2 hours straight without any issues. And then you have the actual displays that sit inside the glass. And those holographic displays, they resolute at 720p each. And have an automatic pupillar distance calibration, which is very important. In the first prototypes, everyone had to remember his IPD, which stands for interpupillar distance. Mine was 6.2, for example. I can still remember it because we had to hand calibrate it with a separate tool and then configure the software so the 2 displays that you're seeing through get overlaid in the right way so you can see in 3D. But that's now automatic. So don't have to do that by hand anymore. Then we have a fairly decent battery. It says 2 to 3 hours. I would say from our experience, it's if you have maximum brightness on, doing real tough gaming on it, you can have 2 hours out of 1 battery life. And then one might not know that, but one of the more important parts would be the built-in speakers doing spatial audio. Because if you imagine a 3D experience and you imagine holograms, it's really important to hear them in 3D. That's a really big part of the experience because most of the times you can see a certain portion of your room, but there are also things around you. And there might be holograms that you don't see. But as soon as you can hear them in 3D, you know they're here, and then you can turn towards them because you can hear it's behind you, you turn around and you see a hologram. Really important for gaming, for example. Then you have some buttons, okay, that's not so exciting. If we look at the sensors, that's probably the most impressive part from a hardware perspective. We have a lot of cameras built into the HoloLens that combine into a hardware unit called the HPU, the holographic processing unit, that takes all the sensor data and builds the spatial mapping out of it. So we have various depth cameras. They're kind of similar to those that have been used in the Kinect sensor. If you tried out Kinect, that's kind of the same idea, just the other way around. So we have 4 of those, 4 environment cameras, 1 depth camera, and photo video camera to record what you're seeing, and a microphone array for voice command. So, before doing a live demo, I have 2 videos to show you. I will roll the first video giving you like the overview impression how HoloLens feels, and while that's going on, I'll try to prepare my live demo and see how that goes.
Microsoft HoloLens brings holograms into your real world. Using transparent lenses, spatial sound, and an understanding of your environment, holograms look and sound like they're actually part of the world around you. That is mixed reality. With Microsoft HoloLens, holograms are viewed through the holographic frame centered in the middle of your view. This preserves your peripheral vision, so you can move freely and connect and collaborate with people around you. Holograms in mixed reality don't block out what you can see and hear. This enables you to engage with digital content and tools alongside the objects in your real world. Holograms can be world-locked in a physical location, so you can walk around them, or they can travel with you. You can even hear them in 3D with spatial sound. Microsoft HoloLens is the world's first fully untethered, self-contained holographic computer. With the mixed reality experience of HoloLens, you can stay in the real world and interact with real people as you simultaneously explore 3D in 3D.
All right. So who thinks there are fake parts in that video? Who thinks there's some sort of post-production fake parts? Okay. You guys have to try it out a little bit longer then, because I will show you all the apps that have been in that demo. They're actually all real. So, what can you do with HoloLens, apart from obviously building great games? Let's have a look at some scenarios. For example, marketing. That's a sample of Volvo cars. They're using HoloLens to explain complex sensors that sit in modern day cars. So if you have like a typical car, there's a lot of intelligence in it. You have certain sensors and assistance systems. And they have built a demo where you have a real car sitting in front of you. You put on the HoloLens and you have like a scanner view into the car. And you can see where everything sits, how systems interact. So you can use actually HoloLens pretty good for explaining complex products. That's an easy one. We can use it for design. That's a sample app by Autodesk. They're building a extension companion app for their CAD suite. And with this app, you can actually visualize the objects you're designing in real scale. So you can actually try them out and see them, how they fit into the real world before you actually would print them in a 3D printer. Makes things way more faster and more convenient. We also have currently a customer project where we're using this for architecture. So when you have a layout of a floor plan and you have different configurations you could do on the floor plan, where walls are, which materials you would actually use, you can put that on your meeting table as a 3D hologram. And there's an option in the HoloLens where you can link multiple HoloLenses together. So you can have 4 or 5 people standing around, each wearing a HoloLens, and each seeing the exact same hologram from their individual perspective, and then interact and collaborate, play through different versions of the holograms. Then there's education, and this will be one of the apps we can actually try out because they're available on the HoloLens. That's an app by the Case Western University. They're using this app to teach new doctors about human anatomy. So you don't need to have so many real human bodies anymore. You have to cut through, and it's much more tangible than having a book or any kind of video, because you can have the human body in full scale. You can walk around it, and you have an interactive mode where you can take organs out, take blood channels out, take the skin off and things like that, and you can really explore the human body. Then architecture, I already mentioned that. What's really cool is about remote servicing. This is actually the area where most of the projects that are currently running out there would be centered around, is remote servicing. So the idea about remote servicing is that if the guy that's doing the remote repair on site is wearing a HoloLens, he can be instructed in 3D from a remote engineer that's sitting in a corporate headquarters. And the first who tried that out actually was NASA. They sent up 2 HoloLenses to the ISS space station. They did a first try in September, but the rocket crashed, not because of the HoloLens, but it crashed. And I hope so. And then they had a second try early this year, and it worked. So now they have 2 HoloLenses up there. And if you imagine how complex machinery gets repaired today, it's mostly that you have checklists or pure audio. And the idea with HoloLens is that you can actually attribute things in 3D. So if I can see the viewport of the remote engineer, I can actually draw in 3D. So take this part, move it here, turn it around 3 times, take it off, go there, take it from here, put it there. And there's a lot of scenarios. We have currently a customer that's in the wooden industry, and he builds complex machinery for the wooden industry. So you take a piece of lumber in the one side, and it comes out an IKEA table on the other side, kinds of stuff. And those machinery gets deployed in very, very remote locations, like in the Amazon rainforest. And it's extremely complicated and costly, and takes a lot of time to send someone there to repair it. And they're thinking about shipping a HoloLens with each of their complex machinery so they can do remote servicing there. Then, of course, there's a lot of stuff happening in research and science. NASA, again, is using HoloLens to actually control the Mars rover. So they have a complete texturing of the Mars surface. They can walk around in a holo room and then direct the Mars rover to certain pieces, tell him to lift a stone up, can look under it, and things like that. And then there's gaming. Well, that's an easy one. You might have seen the Minecraft demo. I have one very cool app that you have to try out later. It's called RoboRaid, Remind me if I forget, because that's an app that actually builds a dynamic level out of your current room. So wherever you are, you always get a new kind of experience. It scans all your room, the floor, the ceiling, everything, and then it builds a level out of it, and you can in this case, shoot at alien invaders. And this one is an interesting one, semi-virtual construction. So imagine you have parts of your real device, and that's interesting for automotive especially. So you have like the ground system of a car that's always the same across different models, and you can try various variants upon it without having to build out a real model. So now comes the second video, and I promise this is the last video, and then we get live. This shows kind of the current projects that are under development by real-life customers. Okay, so let's see if the wireless likes me. This one can sometimes interrupt. I'm now trying to pull a live stream from my HoloLens, and it takes some time until it's getting a little bit smoother. There might be some delay, but that's due to the wireless transmission. I can see it without any latency. So let's see. What do I have in this room that you guys maybe can see? See, there's an astronaut in here. So this is our first hologram, and you can see I can walk around it to see it from different perspectives. I can get closer to it or walk farther away, and for me it feels like it's really there. See, oh, there's someone standing over there. Let's see if we can interact with this guy. He can dance. And as I told you, there are different modes. There are holograms, and there are also every Windows app can be a hologram as well. So I look over here, and I have here the Edge browser, which is a UWP app, open with the Twitter. Let's see if something's going on here. And this gives us the unique and first possibility ever to actually see what's behind Windows. I always want to know what's actually behind me, because I can walk around the window. Let's see are you guys excited? What's behind Windows? Let's see. They already prepared a blue screen for me. That's nice. So those are pretty basic holograms. I did also pin 2 apps down here, as you can see. Those are the splash screens of those apps. Let's see if I can pull up one of those guys. And the demo goats are with me. Oh, there we go. Oh, it's so slow. I'm sorry for the quality. Let's see if I can restart the stream to make this better. You guys have to stop tweeting so I get more wireless. Okay, so I have a pretty cool model of the Earth, and there should be, the moon is circling around it. And let's see where we can go from here. This is actually an app, it's called Galaxy Explorer, that is available open source on GitHub. So if you want to see how this is built, you can actually just download the code and try it out yourself. And you can completely explore our galaxy. I can zoom out once more. See me always doing the air tab. And here we are on the galaxy level, and you can go to different solar systems and look for here. Then I have another example. See if that works. Oh, no demo without unicorns, by the way. So, but anyway. Let's see if that is still working. That's the hardest one. I can't see it. I give it one more try. See me doing the bloom. That's kind of, I'm lost. Get me out of, oh. Where am I? Okay, just keeps restarting. I'll do that later, maybe, if it works. Or you can try it yourself. Remind me if I don't for the holo anatomy demo, because that's the one of the real human body that has a very, very detailed model. All right. So, get back to slides. Give me a sec. Okay, that's where we left off. Let's have a quick look into how we do development for the HoloLens, because that's, I guess, the most interesting part for you is how do I code for this. First of all, we need some tooling, fairly easy. You definitely would want to have Visual Studio 2015, important with update free, otherwise it won't work. That's free as a community edition for personal use. And if you do the custom install, and we're developers, so everyone is doing the custom install, I know, be sure to check the tools and SDK for Universal Windows App Development. Otherwise, it won't show up the templates that you will need. And then there's a pretty cool emulator for the HoloLens. So first thing, you won't have a device right away. So you can still start using the HoloLens emulator, and you can pair it with your Xbox remote control, so you can use it to walk around in a virtual room, so you can try everything out. And then you might also want to have Unity. And this one is complicated. It's free because it's a beta, but you don't have to listen to anything Microsoft writes on its websites. That's important here, because they will also link you towards the HoloLens technical preview. Every article out there on the internet, all Microsoft sites, all Unity sites will point you to this version of Unity. This one doesn't work anymore. It's outdated. You just have to download the regular Unity 5.5 Beta 11. That's the right bits. All the other versions you download for hours, and then it tells you the download is corrupt or anything. It's just frustrating. Believe me, that's the right one. So if you have those software installed, you will have two basic options that you can choose from when you want to build a holographic app. First of all apps that run on a HoloLens have to be Universal Windows apps. That's just a runtime environment. But inside, you have two basic options. If you want to just kind of prototype around, fool around with the system, get something going, your fastest path would always be Unity. That's an established ecosystem. You find a lot of samples out there, all the documentations around Unity, and you get a lot of help. Unity using C#. If you're kind of hardcore, want to have all the performance of the device, want to really dig deep into all the hardware, you can also opt to use DirectX 11, either pure C++ or using SharpDX with C#. Most of the apps that are currently in the store are built on Unity, so that might probably be your first and best bet. And then if you've chosen one of those options, you get to choose which app view version or which app view options you're going to take, the holographic view or the 2D view. We've seen an example of the 2D view with the Edge browser, and we've seen a lot of examples with the holographic view. So the difference would be that when you use the holographic view, you're always full screen, meaning the HoloLens renders just your stuff, nothing else. There's no shell, no other apps floating around, it's just your stuff. Example of that was when I was starting the Galaxy Explorer, all the other things vanished. That's because it's a holographic app, using a holographic view. The advantage is you can play things just anywhere. You don't have any limitations whatsoever. You can like completely fill this room with whatever. It can render world-lock holograms, meaning holograms that stick to a certain position, that don't wander around. It doesn't render shell, and the app is solely responsible to handle all user input. There will never be an operating system interfering with your UI. On the other hand, we have the 2D view, where all the classic Windows app would be started in. And you can, by the way, mix those views. So you can have an app that's using both techniques and switch between both. 2D views will also always render in one of those slates that I was walking around. 2D views can be adjusted in size and positions, but the app always gets the same resolution. It just gets scaled. So you don't get, like if you make it double as wide, it doesn't get double as many columns in Excel, for example. It just gets scaled up. That's a limitation right now. And one important thing to remember, if you do something interactive, there's an on-screen keyboard, but currently that only works in 2D view. So if you have a holographic app that needs some sort of text input, you have to switch to 2D view and back if you want to do that. All right. Then we have a typical development workflow when we do build our first holographic app, and I will show that in a minute. So first of all, you will do all your UI work in Unity. You build out your scene, place a camera. By the way, the camera is the HoloLens, of course. It's just one camera, that's you. And place your lighting. And then you will develop your interactive components using Visual Studio or any other IDE, doesn't matter. And as soon as you're ready to test or deploy your app, you will actually export the project from Unity as a Visual Studio solution, open it in Visual Studio, and from there you can deploy it either to the emulator or onto a real device. So let's have a look and see how the demo goats are doing. So I have a sample app in Unity here. That's a sample that you can download. I will show you later some resources where you can get started. That's an app similar to the Galaxy Explorer. It will render the solar system with all the planets animated. And if I want to export a Unity project, and that applies to any Unity project, might be an iPad a game or whatever, you can still export that on the HoloLens. Just make sure that if you start your export, select Windows Store, Universal 10, target device HoloLens, and the UWP build type to Direct 3D. This would generate a Visual Studio solution. I won't do it right now because it takes forever. I have that already exported and opened in Visual Studio. So here in Visual Studio, this is a standard UWP app that gets generated. I could download it right away, upload it to the store, or I can now deploy it on the emulator, or I can try to deploy it on the device. And because I'm feeling funny right now, we might actually try to do that and see how the app looks like. We give it one shot and then it doesn't work right away. We'll have to see. All right. It's packaging. Starting to deploy. And I will switch over to the holographic view and see if I can share it with you. So I'm still on the shell, so I can see my basic holograms and the Windows 10 start menu for HoloLens. And let's see, still deploying. Eventually, in some seconds, we'll have a splash screen showing that we're starting our new Unity app. Oh, come on. Don't let me down. Okay, it's starting a debugging session. That's good. That looks good. Let's see. So you see the shell is gone. I'm in full screen mode now because it's a holographic app. Just have to make sure I'm not clearing down the notebook. And here we have our little splash screen. And eventually, somewhere, there will be an app. Oh, we see our spatial mapping. That's cool. And there we are with our solar system. So that's just a basic Unity app, deployed F5, standard C# debugging session, nothing fancy. It's very, if you have ever done Windows development, it just feels normal. You have just to adjust a little bit to being in 3D. Oh, there's something down there. Okay, that looks strange. All right, so that's a short demo of how to actually do stuff for this device. I will point you to some more resources right away. Let's see if that works. So if you're planning to start your own holographic journey, first grab the tools. And then I would always recommend, first thing is attend the Holographic Academy. That's a multi-hour online course, completely free, that you can go to and really learn step-by-step all aspects from spatial mapping to voice and gesture, what it takes to build a real application using Unity and C#. If you're done with that, you can either deep dive into the docs, or I would suggest heading over to the Galaxy Explorer on GitHub, because that's a really big app that's been built on HoloLens, and then you can, of course, submit your app to the Windows Store, which is highly recommended because the store consists just of about 120 apps right now. So if you have an own app in the HoloLens store, you're pretty visible worldwide right now. There's not much competition here because everyone's still in the process of building. And then if you're so fascinated by the device that you actually would want to buy it, I have one slide with the buying facts also. It's currently available in some countries, including Germany. It's a little bit pricey right now because it's a prototype device. It's hand-built, and it's meant for development. So there's a development edition around 3,000 euros. And then there's a commercial suite. And the commercial suite is actually the exact same hardware, no difference in the hardware. It just comes with a different version of Windows that allows you to actually deploy it in production use, meaning that you have something like a kiosk mode where people would be locked down into your app and cannot leave the app, and you have some more services around it. And with that, we've seen all the basics. Thanks a lot, and I'm open for questions.
And so?
Yep, sounds good.
Is the interaction mode, you showed 3 different modes, and the gaze mode is controlled with head tracking or with eye tracking?
It's controlled with head tracking.
Okay,
yeah.
So my eye movements aren't tracked from
It's not watching your eyes, where your eyes moving now. Not yet, maybe.
Just one thing, some of you might have asked questions via the app. At this moment I cannot ask the questions because I cannot access them. So if you just don't mind, please just put up your hand and ask the question if you don't mind. My apologies.
Hi. So I asked a question through the app, which is the HoloLens powerful enough from the display capacity to actually make things disappear in the room, so you can put something in front of them and kind of make them invisible? Actually, yes, and there's a sample you can try out if you like. It's the same game I just mentioned, the RoboRaid. What it does, it actually lets the wall explode, so you have your holes in the walls, and you can look through the wall into a virtual world. So it completely blends out the wall, no matter what color or whatever. It has limitations, obviously, if the light the HoloLens produces is not strong enough because your environment light is too bright. It has limitations, but in a room like this, with even those lights on, it works perfectly.
Hi. Does it come with any APIs to interact with objects in 3D space?
So there are 2 ways of doing this. So you have the spatial mapping, which gives you like basic recognition of what's around you from a geometry perspective. And then you have SDKs that go on top of that, like Vuforia, That's pretty popular, I think, on iOS as well. That has real object recognition where you can train 3D objects into and really recognize, okay, this is this car or this object, and I want to have something some virtual outlines to it or whatever. As long as it's not moving fast. So that's the only limitation. If it's moving too fast, the 5 frames per second really limited that to moving objects.
Are there any SDK for game developers, so like Xbox apps, which will be using this in some future? Or is it only Visual Studio and Windows 10?
So right now it's limited to Windows and Visual Studio and Unity. So if you have like a casual game that's built in Unity, it's easy to port. If you build something like with the Unreal Engine, for example, it's not, at least not yet there.
Do you have an opinion if childs could use this, or is it not safe for certain ages? Because
I mean, from a health perspective, I wouldn't have any concerns because you don't have like the typical motion sickness. It's not there because you always have a connection to the real world. So it's much less invasive as virtual reality. But you have the weight. So 580 grams for a child might be a problem. But I had my 8-year-old niece using it a lot, so she was happy using it. But I haven't really figured out what kind of the limit is.
Does the HoloLens also work on the outside, or do I have to be in a room inside?
You don't have to be in a room for it, because it doesn't have to have walls. It doesn't even have to have a floor. You can just have an object hovering in front of you. Then there are some apps like the game that need a wall for the sake of the content. Well, okay, then you have to have some wall. But almost all of the apps would run perfectly outside. You just have, if you look into direct sunlight, obviously you can't see holograms anymore because you can't see anything else apart from the sun, but that's it.
Is Microsoft considering to make a consumer product out of this?
I don't know that. I don't work for Microsoft. I cannot tell their product plans. I'm hoping, of course, but there's a more general answer to it, I guess. So the bigger story behind HoloLens is actually the platform itself. So it's actually not about the device, it's about the platform. The platform is called Windows Holographic. And you will see that future versions of Windows on a desktop as well will support Windows Holographic. So for example, with the Creators Update coming in spring, you can have some of the holographic experience on your normal notebook and desktop PC if you have certain VR accessories, for example. And also, Microsoft is encouraging OEMs to build their own Windows Holographic enabled hardware. So I personally, it's my personal opinion, the HoloLens is something like the Surface. It's like a reference hardware, and it's a call to action for all OEMs, and we expect at least one device this year to emerge by an OEM that's actually built on Windows Holographic that offers kind of a twist of the current hardware. So I would assume, yes, there will be consumer devices at some point because we'll have a broad ecosystem.
Any other questions?
We have one up here.
Are there any plans to go beyond visual, like to pair it with gloves to have pressure sensory experience?
I cannot comment on any plans.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think that's all we have time for. Thank you very much, Philipp.
Thank you.